All right, welcome. This week's topic is marketing ethics. And I think sometimes when we think of ethics, we think of like, oh, it's right and wrong, and it's pretty clearly black and white kind of issue where there's two clear sides. And when I like thinking about ethics, I like thinking about the gray area. Like, what would be a conversation that wouldn't be as easy to determine what's right and what's wrong? And so there's a few like famous cases um, about around marketing ethics. Kendall Jenner had a Pepsi ad that people feel differently about. Sometimes like health and beauty products or like influencer marketing. How do they disclose that they were paid to promote that? Do they not? There's some famous like other like health cases where companies will promote that something is healthy without any scientific backing. Um, and it like those some of those can be more of like a gray area. My favorite gray area topic was a company that sold table salt, promoted it as non-GMO. And if you are reflecting on your chemistry, um, like all salt is naturally made, and it doesn't tend to have GMOs in it. It's not a genetically modified organism, and so they promoted it as non-GMO, and they sold it at a higher price, and they had people buy it because it was non-GMO, but it was just normal salt, right? All table salt is non-GMO, and so it was interesting because they weren't lying about it, right? It was non-GMO. Most of the table salts that you see for sale don't list non-GMO for sale, like as part of the packaging, or it's not prominently displayed. Um, and so that was really interesting. Like they sort of like tricked customers, but also the customers didn't know any better, right? Like, so whose fault is that, right? Is it the companies for kind of playing into the demand for non-GMO products, or is it the customers for not being aware that table salt is typically non-GMO anyway? And so that stuff is really interesting to me. And who's at fault? Is it sometimes marketing kind of gets a bad rep for being unethical, and I feel like that's kind of a stereotype that some people have about marketing. Oh, you got to be like a little sleazy to work in marketing, and I just don't feel like that has to be true. Um, but there are some cases where marketers have done really terrible things. There was was it Nestle? A couple decades ago, Nestle promoted like a baby formula in third world countries. I said, this is what your baby needs to be healthy, and it ended up killing some babies, and that was kind of a controversial thing. And so we like it's understandable why marketers from that case might get kind of a bad reputation. Um, but we want to be careful as marketers. We don't want to ruin that reputation, and it hurts our brand, right? And so marketing ethics is a big deal. And so how do we determine what's right and what's wrong? And so I hope that you think about that each time you're out in the store, um, or each time you're buying something, and you say, okay, how would I have done this differently? Is this really being presented properly? Um, Another kind of like dilemma around it, especially when you buy a service, that the services tend to put their best foot forward right away. And then later on, as you're a customer for longer, some of those like true colors show. And I think about that kind of like dating sometimes, in that, you know, um, at what point in time do you share that you live in like um, your parents' basement kind of thing? Is that something that you share right away, and you say, "Oh man, this is where I live," and there's nothing wrong with that. But maybe it's not something that you tend to lead with, right? And so when we think about services, that can be kind of a tricky area. Like, what information do we present first? At what point in the relationship do we share, something else that maybe our customers might not like as much, or maybe someone else wouldn't like as much as maybe some of the stuff we shared earlier. I also think it's different in these cases. If a customer asks me specifically, hey, what about this? And I lie about it, that would be different versus when do I choose to share it? And so those things can be kind of a choice, right? And so those are big deals, and hopefully we can come up with some ways to think about marketing ethics in a different way as a result of the work in this chapter. Thanks.